Cool. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Nordic Sound channel. As always, I am your host, Jameson Foster, and today I have with me Andreas Axelsson of Nattramn. Andreas, would you like to say hello?
Hello.
All right, so Andreas has been running this dark folk band project, whatever you want to call it, called Nattramn, for some time, and I have been quite a fan ever since stumbling across Vedastaver. So he's up and coming in the scene, I would say. He's doing a lot of cool stuff, doing a lot of collaborations, which is really cool for new artists. Get to hear you in a whole bunch of different contexts. I just want to start. What other collaborations have you been working with? I know you're working on one with Aftenstorm, if I'm allowed to say that. But who else have you collaborated with?
I've collaborated with a bunch of people, actually. And I don't know why, I just found it fun to do. I guess. I collaborated with in the dark folk scene, I guess, only. I've collaborated with Will Hunter, Sigurd Bodie once, on a full album we did. And I've done some songs with Jameson from Nordic.
Yep.
I hope I pronounced that right.
Yeah, I never know if I'm pronouncing that right.
No, me neither. And yeah, I'm working on something with Daniel from Aftenstorm. We haven't really gotten to do anything yet, but right now we're just building each other an instrument we're going to trade, which is also going slowly on my end, though. I worked with this guy from Skalti. I think Barek is his name.
I think so.
Which was really cool. And I'm sorry if I forget something, but I've done so many songs with a bunch of people, but that's what I can think of at the moment.
Oh yeah, all good. Yeah, I just wanted to sort of like highlight that you are pretty active, and you do not just stay in your own little corner. And that's something that I always find really cool about this scene, is it's so sort of tight knit that I'll listen to someone's new music and see on the featured list a whole bunch of people I know that I had no idea interacted with each other. So just a cool part of the scene.
Yeah, this whole scene is really close. Everyone knows everyone. I get that feeling a lot.
Oh yeah, very much so. So, Andreas, I'd love to hear a little bit before we talk about your latest album, Gravmarken. I would love to hear about your background as a musician. I always love hearing how people got into this weird esoteric music scene. We always start out so innocent, and then we eventually make our way into this stuff. So, what's your earliest experience with music?
Well, I always wanted to play the drums, but never got to it, and still haven't. So that was my very first, like, when I knew I wanted to do something with music. And yeah, and from on there it went on for many years before I eventually picked up the guitar and taught myself. I've never taken any lessons whatsoever, even though I would love to. But yeah, time, money.
Yeah,
you know,
self-taught is our way. Very DIY.
Yeah. And from there on, I just tried to start a couple of bands where I'd be like the metal bands, I have to say, death metal whatsoever. And I'd be the vocalist. I'd do growling and high-pitched screams, pig squeals and all that stuff. And because I wasn't particularly good at guitar yet,
okay.
Still am not, I guess. But it all crumbled down in the end, because working with people has always been very hard for some reason. I don't know why. Like when you have bands, at least.
I get that. I haven't been in a band in a very long time, and when I am in a band, it's usually because we were already really good friends, you know?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, and no one really wants to take it anywhere except the rehearsal room.
Yeah, exactly. I get that. It
And
can be very, especially I'm assuming just because of the amount of music you've done solo. You know, you have a very strong idea of a creative vision. Like you have a very you're very committed to your ideas that you have. And I'm very similar to the point where sometimes it's maybe scary to let someone in to that creative vision because I'm kind of like, don't mess with it. I don't, right?
yeah, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
That, and that's eventually what pushed me to do so many projects as well, because I want this thing to be, this is my pure idea. I do not want your input. I don't want you to do anything with it unless I ask you for it. But
Yeah.
I've always been very open to working with people though, because it's fun when it actually
Mhm.
works though. So,
Yeah.
but I guess that's what drove me into doing this one man thing in the end,
Mhm.
because I started out with ambient music and realized like this is very fun, and I can do it on my own, and I don't have to do anything else with it. I can just make it.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and eventually that turned into my first dark Nordic folk project,
Mhm.
Ursprung, and yeah, that was a experimental thing, uh, and that turned into what I am doing today. And before all this, I had some black metal projects as well, which everyone has apparently.
Everyone, it's like you can if people were to do like a Nordic Sound Channel bingo card for any
Yeah,
interview, like the free space would be used to do black metal, like always.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
you have this project that started out ambient, and then you eventually get into what becomes not ramen. So what does that name mean, by the way?
Nattramn is the spirit of an. It could be a couple of different things, but
Cool.
it's like the spirit of a person that committed suicide, or a child that's been buried in unholy ground, unsacred. I'm not sure which word is appropriate here, but
All good.
and it comes back in an entity, which is it's old Swedish for night raven, I guess,
Okay.
which is literally what it is, I guess,
Yeah.
a raven that appears during how do you say holidays, high
Mhm.
like those special high. I cannot find the word for it,
Oh, you said no. You
but
said it. Holiday, like some sort of special holiday, or yeah, that was the word.
yeah, and it could appear during the nights of those, and they would sound like the creaking wheels of a carriage.
Okay,
Is that the correct?
sure.
Um, yeah, so that's really where I got it from. And apparently that was a stupid idea in the end, because so many people ask me if I am the singer of Nattramn the band. No, I mean vocalist from Silencer.
You know, it's
But
funny.
now
When we
I'm taking
started
it.
talking, I was like, "Is this the guy from Silencer?"
No, I am sorry to let you down, but I am not.
Well, there were a lot of immediate flags that told me you weren't. Like, first off, that dude like has a whole bunch of baggage going on that you did not have, and so very quickly I
Yeah,
was like, this cannot be the guy.
yeah. But everyone keeps asking me that, and no matter how many times I address this, people still they do no research whatsoever on this. They just take it for Natram, the vocalist. Um,
Well, you know,
but
the what we love to say in America is any publicity is good publicity. So, you know, maybe play that off.
yeah, yeah, I found some people that wrote to me and told me like, yeah, I thought this was Silencer's Natram project, but wasn't, but still very good. So I'm gonna linger around. I like this. So yeah, I benefited from it, I guess. But that was very not my idea or intention whatsoever from the beginning.
A happy
Uh,
accident.
but yeah, exactly.
So what?
Oh well.
So when you get into so you were doing black metal, right? And you were also doing vocals in death and black metal, and then so eventually you make it into this solo project. And was this entirely because of your preference of working alone, or was and this was just the easiest way for you to like do a solo project that worked out, or was there were other reasons for eventually getting into this acoustic dark folk scene away from black metal?
Yeah, well, I don't know really what drove me to it. I told my girlfriend I wanted to do something Nordic ambient, uh, and I've heard Vardruna as everyone else. But that was I heard Vardruna a bunch of years before, and at the time it never really stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew they existed, and yeah, that slowly inspired me to go into it, and yeah, well, I'm rambling.
No, you're not rambling at all. No. I actually find that really fascinating because I honestly I had the same thing, right? Like, so I don't know about you, but so many of us, we were all there in that scene in the TV show Vikings, right? When Einar
Yeah,
Selvik is doing Helvegen, and we're all, we all remember where we were on that day when we're like, what the hell is this? This is amazing, right? Um,
yeah,
but that was back in what, 2013, 2014? And
yeah,
I was
somewhere.
the somewhere in that area, and I was the same way. Like, I loved it, but I wasn't immediately like, I have to do this. I need more of this. If anything, it was just like so out of nowhere that I had to sit with it for a few years, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah, it
I
had to
would
grow.
exactly. So I would keep once in a while I would keep listening to it, and over the span of several years, I would listen to it more and more. So what you're
Yeah,
saying, I completely relate to. It wasn't like I heard Hellveg and I was like, "This is my life now." It
yeah,
was over time. It became more and more a part of my preference in listening and making music. So I relate to what you were just saying a whole bunch.
yeah. I don't know why, but I did entirely ambient stuff, and I only themed it Nordic in. I didn't even have lyrics to begin with. It was entirely ambient, and I just named the songs some Nordic themed stuff, and that's just where it began, and it turned into what Ursprung ended up as.
Mm-hmm. Ah, that is so cool. So
But
I wasn't. This is why I way prefer letting the conversation go where it will, because I never would have come up with this question I'm about to ask you just ahead of time without this. Um, so you are from Sweden, correct?
yeah,
Yeah. So I've talked to a few Swedish musicians on here, and it seems to me like there was a lot more stigma in Sweden against like this really outspoken Nordic cultural expression that was very present in the 90s, early 2000s. But over time, it's become like more accepted. Um, I was talking to Hindarfjell about this,
yeah,
where a few decades ago, you wouldn't really want to be out like in Stockholm wearing a Mjolnir or something like that. But over time, it's become a little bit more accepted. When you started doing this project, did you feel like there was any stigma around doing like this very outspoken type of Nordic music, or not?
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
When I started out first, uh, locally,
Mhm.
people spoke about this, and when a friend told someone about my project and asked if they heard it, and yeah, it's that Nazi band from
Oh, this is
well,
what I was. Yeah.
not really what I was aiming for, but it's
So
just a matter of
all you were doing was just Nordic ambient music, and you already had that stigma about you.
yeah, I didn't really need to do much at all. So, which is crazy actually, because people label you very easily for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same in Norway. All I know is that it is the Swedish musicians like yourself that talk about it more. So this is why I'm very fascinated with sort of the process of how do you think that stigma is still there in 2024? Do you think it's opened up a bit?
I think it's opened up definitely
Mhm.
quite a lot, to be honest. But we still have people like if you're having runes on your body or anything Nordic at all, there is always going to be that person that's gonna, oh, point their fingers. You're a racist,
Yeah,
which
it
is real
happens.
stupid.
I've got tattoos all over my arms of runes and stuff.
Yeah,
And I walk across University of Colorado Boulder's campus. These kids are like watching me walk across campus, like, is he one of them? And I'm like, oh my god, why? And so I'm very familiar with that feeling. Now, what I'm curious about is, what do you think caused like this opening up? Do you think it was more just the fact that more people like yourself were just doing it and showing, look, it's harmless. I'm not right.
yeah. I think a lot more people got into this because once the Viking series once again got popular, I believe a lot of people were like, "Oh, there actually is something more to this
Mhm.
than yeah, the bad people."
Yeah.
And but yeah, I definitely think that as the scene has grown, it has been proven to be more like it's nothing more than a theme or
Mhm.
historical thing, I guess.
Mhm.
Uh,
Now, what drew you
but
to it?
what?
What drew you to it? Like, what about that history sort of like caught your attention to the point where you wanted to make music expressing it?
I wanted to like look back. What do we have actually that we could put to work? Like, how do you say? I wanted to see put our history to work somehow.
Yeah.
Like, I like old stuff.
Yeah.
And the instruments, we have so much instruments, and that's what mainly drives me right now, at least. And I suppose that's what it did back then,
Mhm.
because I have so many instruments that I've collected, and I want all of them to be like historical.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, well, that's basically it, I guess. Um,
Awesome. Yeah,
and
because it's so interesting to me. It's so interesting to me that you also bring up Vikings as a part of this more cultural acceptance towards embracing that part of history. Because I remember when Amon Amarth was getting started out, right? They dealt with that a lot. But what's interesting to me is not even just the Viking Age. Sabaton, all these bands are bands that a lot of people listening are gonna like roll their eyes at. But these are big bands from Sweden, and Sabaton did their album on Karl XII and Gustavus Adolphus, and that was their biggest album at that point. And people were like, "Oh, this is a Nazi band," but they were.
yeah,
And there is like that cultural association between Nazis and the Lion of the North and all of that. But it seems like more in Sweden than anywhere else I was seeing with these bands that they were getting the most mainstream pushback to using history as a source for music. And it's so funny to me to see that maybe it was just the TV show Vikings that was like, "Hey guys,
yeah.
this could be cool."
I I know a lot of people are tired of that series and all the
Mhm.
stuff. Like, but I genuinely believe they actually cured some of this diffuse line between music and hateful stuff. And
Mhm.
yeah, it opened up something. I'm not sure how I'm gonna address it, but I'm pretty sure that's got a lot to do with it.
Mhm. Yeah, well, because music and art, right? Like that's a really good way to just communicate stuff in a way the words can't. And I know that in Norway, Vardruna did a lot of legwork in showing. I'm in that ivory tower demographic of like people who study proper music and all of this, and it's crazy to me how like I feel like 15 years ago musicologists wouldn't have been caught dead humoring stuff like this, and now the so many of the most active scholars of Nordic music will casually go see Vardruna whenever they play live in Bergen. And it's so funny to me how like it seems like it's speaking across demographics, and it's touching people in different ways for different reasons. And I think that just goes to show how powerful music can be and sort of like breaking down these barriers.
Yeah, yeah, very, completely agree with that. But there is something in Sweden here. We have this traditional folk music scene,
Hmm.
and they absolutely like these purists. They absolutely hate this new ambient scene, and I think that's quite silly, to be honest, because that's like, yeah, well, we're doing this with your instruments, and you hate it, but can you only do one thing with one instrument? Like, I can only play classic music on a guitar, or can I hop over to jazz sometimes, or metal, or it's pretty silly.
Yeah,
But
I
I
no, you continue.
yeah. No, it has a strong grasp here still. But I think since there has come so many new bands and so much people that have gotten into this whole thing with the toggle harpas most foremost, I guess, and I don't think they have the energy to even yell back anymore. They just go with their subtle hate.
That is such a good way to put it. Like they're outnumbered, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's the perfect word for it.
And I found that I will say at least in my experience, I think that's more of a vocal minority, but that's again my experience as an American that from a distance participates in this stuff because Sweden, especially in the folk music scene, they were sort of the first ones to open up into like folk rock of all the Scandinavian countries. And people were pretty upset about like if you know the band Huvendruven, back when they got started, they were like the first Swedish folk rock band, or like at least the first one that really broke out.
Mm.
They had some pretty significant pushback, but as you said, after enough time passed, every the critics sort of lost the will to argue, and
Yeah,
so I think it's a natural progression of things. Yeah,
yeah, creating new stuff is always going to be problematic, I guess. You can
yeah,
probably see that in every topic.
yeah, and
Uh,
I just think that it's just so healthy to have this balance between like what you would call like the old guard or the very staunch traditionalists and the people willing to go out and experiment. I think
yeah,
they need each other, right? I don't know if you feel the same way, but even though sometimes they'll butt heads, they need each other, right?
yeah, very much, very much. Because if they were first, I got to give them that absolutely. uh, but if we didn't have them, we wouldn't have these instruments at all
Hmm.
because it would die out. I
Yep.
mean, we didn't really play this stuff much further back than 90s, I guess.
Hmm.
So yeah, we definitely need each other. It's a symbiosis, I guess.
100%, because I'm also dealing with that here. There's this we have a Scandinavian Colorado Alliance thing here in Colorado, and uh, their biggest event of the year is always Midsummer. They put on this, the maypole, and they have this festival where everyone in the area sort of comes together. We have Scandinavian musicians and a whole bunch of traditional stuff, but then they also have a Viking village there. That's very much like the Viking market thing, right? And
Yeah,
I was talking to one of the organizers, and the way that they worded it is they need to do something about all the butter churning Lutherans not letting anyone else back into not letting anyone else participate in this, because at least in their perspective, like the very traditional people were like Midsummer Festival is only bunads, it's only fiddles, it's only all of these things are preventing younger people who are into Vardruna, who are into Heilung, who are into other types of Nordic music and art, feel
yeah,
like they're not welcomed there because the butter churning Lutherans are kind of like, this isn't for you. Um,
yeah,
so we're struggling, or at least we're struggling with trying to find a balance between the traditional stuff and finding other musicians in the area who do something similar but not entirely traditional. And that is a very hard balance to strike, but sometimes maybe you just have to let yourself anger the traditionalists.
yeah. I think that's a healthy thing to do.
All right, so we've done enough knocking on the traditionalists. So let's get back to talking about not Ramon's music. So actually, a
Yeah,
good segue would be something that struck me the very first time I ever listened to Vedastavar, your album before Gravmarken, if I remember correctly. is
Yeah.
your use of Ach Värmland du Skåne in the album.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that, and I was like, is this a traditional folk melody in a dark folk album? No way. This is amazing. And no, I
Correct.
haven't done a full study of your whole discography of when traditional melodies come up. But I guess using this as a segue, is you do you sort of see using traditional melodies in dark folk as sort of trying to bridge the gap, or do you have a different reason for using those melodies in your music?
Well, partially, yeah. I like both styles. I like the traditional music. I'm not gonna lie about that.
Yeah.
Uh, so I really just try to implement some of it into my own creative ideas. That's
Mhm.
pretty much it. But like Värmland is Värmland, which is do you say county?
Yeah, county, region. I think it is a county, yeah.
Region, county region. Yeah, well, that's where I live. So, and I absolutely love that melody, and I wanted to do my take on it.
Hmm.
Uh, I remember when we first did it. I've done two versions, one with Ursprung and one with Nattramn. And the first time I did it, we were in Karlstad, and we were on a meeting with Grimfrost, and they were very fascinated that we did this folk song melody. And they really they pushed me to, you need to do more of these traditional melodies, because this is something unexplored, new. Unfortunately, I never did, but in the future, I probably will, because I like them.
Yep.
And I think it gives them new light when you put them in this dark setting.
Yeah,
And it's very cozy.
yeah, and I think it makes it even more interesting to me. Thinking back, I probably should have guessed that if you put that melody on the album, that means you're probably from Värmland. But that's kind of in your own way of saying, "This is my melody too. I can do what I want with it." Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I can put it over drones and minor chords. You can't tell me what to do. I'm from here. I have every right that you guys have to do this. I
Yeah.
find that very interesting.
But yeah, I guess it served as a bridge onto either side of the traditionalists and dark folk scene.
Mhm.
But that wasn't really the main motive, I
Yep.
suppose.
The main motive was just because you liked the melody.
Well, yeah, and I can do it too.
Oh, awesome! So I will say when I first listened to Vedastavar, um, I was really struck by just your approach to the genre, and I feel like a lot of new dark folk bands can get really hung up on the background of the music, right? Sort of overcrowding the music with extra effects, extra whatever. But listening to
Mm.
Vedastavar, it seemed much more like the focus was more on you rather than the ambience around you. And that's sort of what struck me about it is I really felt like I was listening to just a guy, his lyre, and what other instruments he sort of had laying around him. Um, and listening to Gravmarken, I get very much the same idea. So when you were going from Vedastavar into Gravmarken, was there anything that you wanted to do differently, or was there anything that you wanted to keep the same? What was sort of your mindset going into Gravmarken coming off of Vedastavar?
Uh, from Vedastavar, I still wanted to have the themes of the Edda and all that stuff, but I wanted to put my own words to it, and I really wanted to make it like normal songwriting instead of big ambient soundscapes and all that stuff. Even though I love that too,
Oh yeah,
but I
clearly
wanted,
coming off of Ursprung, yeah.
yeah. So I wanted to be like, as you were saying, I wanted to be focused on you're listening to something smaller, a guy with his lyre, as you're saying, and uh, I wanted to make it like be able to perform live as well. So therefore, I didn't include so much impossible stuff. Uh, it never really made it live. I did one show,
Mhm.
and I only did a couple of songs from that album. But going from that into Gravmarken and that one live show I did really pushed me further into like I want to get on stage and
Mhm.
I want to do it um, quite similar to Vejstaffer, but I want to make it even more live capable. And that also focuses more on the you're seeing someone doing something in a smaller perspective, kind of. Yeah, and I also think, like wanted to have my own lyrics again, but this time I tried to have more poetry and stuff, like my own, not from the Edda once
Mhm.
again. Um, but I think the main thing with the Gravmarken was to make it live performable, I suppose, and sort of skaldic in a not so skaldic way.
Yeah, no, this is
I,
interesting.
I really what
No, keep going. I'll wait till you're finished.
uh, yeah, I really just wanted to. Damn, I lost it.
Sorry, man.
Ah, man, I'm so easily distracted. You have no idea.
No, dude, same for me. That's why like Zoom is a blessing and a curse for me because like the way that organic conversation happens in person is you want it to go everywhere, but over Zoom it makes everyone seem like they're talking over
Yeah,
each other, and then we all get
yeah,
distracted. But so the where I was going to go with this was, I will say, I've interviewed so many dark folk musicians, and not once have any of them brought up to me keeping in mind how playable their music could be live.
yeah,
This is fascinating to me. I'd never even considered this before because that I know, because this also happens with black metal musicians. You know, if we're talking about this overlap, they'll especially like the lo-fi, low budget black metal. You know, they use a drum machine, and then all of a sudden they get a live gig, and they're like, "Oh wait, shit! Do we just put the laptop on the drum? Like what? Or do we get a drummer, and then do we have to teach them how to?" Right? And I feel like a lot of these dark folk bands, you know, when I'm listening to them, that question is at the front of my head. How would they play this live? There's one,
yeah,
right? So that's a very interesting perspective that I actually think if there's any younger or novice dark folk musicians listening to this who want to get in to doing this music, that is such a healthy perspective to have. Keeping in mind, can I play this live or is this only able to exist in a computer?
yes. And I've been thinking about that quite a lot. But that has also made it really hard to write songs because they imprison me in this like I can't do this because if I were to play this song on stage, I will have so much playback, and I'm trying to keep that at a minimum because I still want to make like a dark, deep song,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to have like a million instruments. And there I am sitting at a chair, grunting out lyrics and throat singing on my own. Like I think it's weird. I want like when I put on a show, I don't want to plus play and people are gonna see exactly what they're gonna hear in their headphones.
Yeah.
So
God, I love this, dude, because that's also, you know, we were we were talking about we were talking about Scuzzlebutt before we got started here. That's why I started doing stuff only on the banjo, because
yeah,
I had that same idea. If I want to do this, I want to be able to I want to be able to play what you hear on the album, but not be reliant on having these playback or these MIDI files playing, right? I want it to be a thing where if you're listening to the banjo in person, it is a different but similar experience where I'm not sitting there like, oh, I can't do this part because I don't have this track or I don't have this instrument with me.
yeah,
And yeah, that's a you're also you're also sort of flirting with the topic of how good limitations can be for creativity, because that's not a new concept at all, but we often forget it. You know, even
yeah,
Stravinsky, the Russian composer, um, he was one of the most vocal about how important it was to put limitations on yourself because they were the most important part of being creative, right? And so you do find that these limitations, even though they can be frustrating, you feel like they help your creativity. Yeah.
yeah, very much. I am a less is more type of person
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning. So I guess that's why I started with ambient.
Yeah.
And I think too much of everything. Like I hear a lot of dark folk music. You have this million drums, and it drowns out so much because you do not limit yourself to something. Like I don't remember that song. All I remember is a million percussions. If I were to think about it, if you write, please. I mean, I am not trying to say you can't do it, but
Mhm.
I as a person won't remember it.
No, I agree with you completely. You know, I feel like you and I might potentially be talking about some of the same musicians when we're doing this, right? Or some of the same bands, but I feel the same way, right? Just because you can put 1,000 drums on something doesn't mean you should, right?
No, correct, exactly.
Or at least in our opinion. You know, we're always open
Yeah,
to other approaches, but at least live, that sounds like a nightmare for me.
yeah, same. I need something that hooks onto me, like a melody or something more than dronings and drums. Like
Mm-hmm.
you need something to pick you up. That's what works for me, though, at least.
Yeah,
Uh,
and even more interesting is I feel like a lot of the drum centered bands, you know, I talk with a lot of musicians how the main pillars of this genre are Vardruna, Heilung, right?
yeah,
And a lot of people who get into this genre will usually be able to point at either one or both who got them into it. And with those really drum heavy bands, I can hear so much Heilung, right? But even if you listen to Heilung, they don't have 1,000 drums. They don't even have 10
no,
drums. They've got like, if you listen to their music and you see it live, they've got just like 3 drummers. But if you listen to it in your headphones, right, the way it's mixed in the studio, it's really only like a couple drums. But it's
yeah,
less of, so even they're showing like, limit yourself to just a few drums, and then you will see where you can go with that. So
yeah. I feel like when you're working with drums, you want that to be the main focus. I You need to do something that really carries up the drums,
mhm.
like what makes it memorable in some way. Um, and that, and when you do that, you can't really put a melody on a lyre or something. It sounds, in my mind at least,
You've
this
got
is only
one
my,
lone lyre competing with like 20 drums.
yeah, and you see that a lot in this scene lately, at least.
Yeah, I think
And
film scores are to blame for that too. A lot of movie soundtracks in the 2010s, the taiko, the Japanese drum, became all the rage in so many. I'm thinking of Mad Max Fury Road. That soundtrack was just like a wall of taiko drums from beginning to end. And
yeah,
it feels like so many of the soundtracks throughout the 2010s had that wall of drums approach, and I think they might also have something to do with it.
yeah, well, might very well be so.
So so you've got this very solid idea going into Gravmarken, which I love. You know, the focus on would I be able to do this live, and is the focus
Yeah,
on me or is the focus on the program I'm using, right? And
yeah.
but something else is what else inspires your music? Because you know I follow you on Instagram, and you your knack for photography is amazing to me. I love it. If no one if anyone's listening, go follow Nattramn right now because the photography that you take of like those small, in English we would call it a microscape, of you know mushrooms, moss, the forest floor. Does that play any inspiration into your music, or is that a purely
Definitely.
side interest?
Uh, well, I got into photography by accident
Okay.
because I like to wander the woods, but I want to do something while I'm doing it. And by chance, my friend picked up a camera and like told me, "Oh, you should too." And oh yeah, why not? And so I did. Um, and I just took it with me and I went out for hours, got lost in this. I see the small things in the forest and think like this would be so cool in a photograph, and it fits the soundscape of my music so perfectly because it's dark, very small, um, it's cozy, I guess.
It is. And because, you said it, I was going to say it too. It does remind me thematically of your music, right? If you zoom into just the little thing, rather
Yeah,
than just the massive forest, if you focus in on this one thing, you have a Not Ramen album. And that's at
yeah,
least that's at least how I feel about it when I see your photography, and especially when you were using that photography for the cover of your singles.
yeah. That's exactly what I was aiming for. Like
Well, you nailed it.
gluing them together now. So, but I really want to incorporate it more. I want to make more music videos and all that stuff. Like really put them together, which is proven to be very, very hard for me because I'm alone doing all this stuff, and it takes so much time. And I am at constant war with time. I got to say, I've struggled so many years with what should I do? What really should I spend my time on?
Hmm.
Do I make this song? Do I focus on video? Do I focus on physical albums? Where do I put the focus? Uh, because everything takes so much time, and especially music videos. I've
I
filmed for
feel that.
years. And no, I really want to put them together more,
Hmm.
but I haven't gotten to it because there's always something else distracting me. Like I said, I'm a very easily distracted person.
Me too, man. I got squirrel brain. It's chronic. It doesn't go away.
Yeah,
So
but
oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
yeah, but if I look at the question again on Gravmarken and performability and all that stuff, this has also driven me to do something new
Hmm.
for the next album, which has proven to be so much harder than what I've done so far, because I'm trying to implement something very new in the sound.
Hmm.
I want to do. I'm going to reveal what it is here, so I haven't really gone out with it yet. So, but the
Okay.
thing is, I looked at, because someone asked me if are you going to do more runic work, and well, yeah, there's only so many runes and all that stuff, but yeah, I suppose I could do something more. And now that idea has come back to me, and I started to look at the Icelandic book of rune staves,
Okay.
and I'm pretty much moving forward in time here. It's no longer that age that
Yeah.
everyone loves so much, and but I don't really care. Like I said earlier, I like the old stuff. It doesn't
Hmm.
necessarily have to be that. And I wanted to write songs, make videos, and make live shows into one album where like you do one stave rune, and you could turn it into more of a show than watching me sitting there grunting with a toggle harpa, and you have something more. Uh, and I look at it as spells instead of songs. Uh,
Amazing. Dude, you and I are on the
so
same wavelength with this. The whole so two things I got to say. First off, I am 100% with you that old stuff is awesome, but the Viking Age is not the only thing that's old, right?
yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
I actually think I've said this before on this podcast, but I think the Middle Ages, the medieval period, is so much trippier than the Viking Age. Like, people were on some stuff in the medieval period. Like, that's when, witchcraft was really starting to blow up. That's when people are starting to like mix Christianity with paganism, and like they're getting this weird hybrid of stuff that's just like out there. And so it's just
Yeah,
like if you take these two things and mix them up, people got fucking weird, right? And that is my favorite part about the medieval period. Um, and so I'm so glad that you're also branching out to that, because I love the Viking Age. I love Vikings. They're pretty dope. But there's more to Northern European history than Vikings. Yeah.
yeah, very much.
Yeah. So people don't give the Middle Ages enough credit. But the other thing is music as spells. This is literally what I am doing research on. And this is what my latest work has been on, is the idea that especially in Northern Europe, I think there's a really strong case to be made for how music was troll magic.
Yeah,
Because when you look at the word utiseta, you sit out at night, and you're waking the trolls. How would you wake the trolls at night? I think you'd play music.
Yeah, probably playing drums.
Yeah.
I heard something. I'm not sure of the authenticity about this, but drums were considered the devil's instrument. I'm not sure if that's true, but it's just something I've heard, and
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
No, I mean, so it's funny. I was actually just talking to Jakob from Heilong about this,
Yeah,
where two instruments have been called the devil's instruments. That's drums and it's the fiddle. And
yeah,
those two things both came from Muslim kingdoms. So I think there's a connection there between why the church didn't like them and why they became pretty strongly demonized. But
oh,
at the same time, there's something there that is magical about it in the way that it sort of influences people, or it can affect people. It can spellbind them in ways
yeah,
that other music doesn't. So there's definitely something there to be explored, where music literally is magic, or music is a spell.
yeah. Because how can you affect someone? Like the easiest way and the most efficient way, I'd say music would be like you can really make someone feel something you're conveying. And that's a really cool idea to put in perspective when you're making something like a song, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And but this whole thing about making the runes, the stave runes from Iceland, there is I really got me thinking. Like we must have something in Sweden similar. So
Mm-hmm.
I turned to a lot of these folk historians and stuff, places I really terrorized people about this. What do we have? Where can I find more? And I rented books. I bought so many books on it, and I found this black art tradition in Sweden. That's apparently something we've had for, I have no idea how long, at least 500 years, I think. Uh, and I found a compendium of 33, I cannot pronounce it, black magic books where there is literally Swedish black spells, black magic spells. So
Dude,
that's
hell
where
yeah.
it's so cool because you, there is so much material to go through before I even begin to create anything. And I've just put 3-4 months now research these books, and they apparently are very hard to come by. But there is this author that's done the work, and he made this compendium where he had been in contact with the Nordic Museum in Stockholm, and they provided him with copies of all these books, and they all date back to somewhere 1500, 1600, and possibly even the 400 year. So that's really where I put focus right now. But this needs to have in my work, I want to focus on the dark stuff.
Yeah. And
uh,
especially because, like, and then just more specific examples, right? You know, you're talking about this black magic tradition is going back to the 1500s, 1400s. That's the same time span traditional music goes back to, right?
yeah,
And they're being practiced in these rural communities that are in the middle of nowhere, right? Very closed off. And especially if you look at, I love this too. It is becoming a little overplayed, but Horgoloten is getting a little
oh,
it's getting a little overexposed, and I am part of the problem of that. I'm also doing something with it, but when Oftrukia did it, a lot of people were confused about the music video, right? They were like, why is there Christian stuff in here? And I'm sitting here looking at the comments like, this is from the 1600s, and it's about the devil fiddling people to death. And that's another example of music literally being a spell or being magic, right? the
yeah,
whole the whole point of Horgoloten was that this hooved devil was at the top of a hill playing music and summoning people to the hill so they would dance themselves to death, right? And then in Norway, you have Fanatulin, which is a fiddle tune that makes people just stab each other upon playing. So we have such a long tradition in Scandinavia of music literally being enchantment or literally being witchcraft. So I
yeah.
think there's a lot there for you to play with.
Yeah, and I feel like it's pretty unexplored, except these big songs.
Hmm.
I think there's very much more to do with it, and that's where I'm heading. And
Yep.
for this, I really wanted to have a new sound. And yeah, there's so much I could say about it, but I'm just going to keep it short. And I think it's going to be cool.
I think so. I'm a little biased because I will say, and I will send this to you afterwards because we are somehow on opposite sides of the ocean, but on the same wavelength with
Yeah, that's
music.
crazy.
Because I've already finished working on an album. On my next album is Scuzzlebutt, where the whole focus is on folk music as troll magic. Um,
That
and
is really
it's
cool.
and I'm keeping it very much the same way you are, simple, one person, one instrument, because one track is going to have just mandolin, the other track's going to have just banjo, whatever. But there's something there to it that I think is like really cool to explore. Just the music, the lyrics don't have to be about witchcraft. The lyrics don't have to be about magic just for the music to be magic. And that's sort of something that traditional music is really cool at teaching us.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Uh, yeah, yeah, like you took the word.
Well, man, I am so looking forward to what you're cooking up with that Black Magic book. Like that is right there, knowing what you've already done with your music and seeing where you could potentially go with these 33 spells. That I'm on the edge of my seat, man. I can't wait to hear what you do with this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping like a lot of it are healing stuff, which is, I suppose, logical. There were probably tough times back then, so people would probably not create all that much damage to each other, more than necessary.
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, I'm probably gonna do. There is like 10% dark evil stuff in this book. I'm definitely gonna use that 10%, but I'm trying to implement some light into it as well. But
Oh, it's so cool.
it's gonna be nice to see like how it plays out. My vision is to be on stage, perform spells onto people.
Mhm. Ah, so cool, dude. We've got to play together someday. I would love this. So
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
you're actually touching on the last topic I sort of wanted to cover with you, which is the where this genre is and sort of what is its future. But we're kind of we've kind of already talked about that because we I will say, and people who've listened to every interview I've done will be very familiar with what I'm about to say, but this genre can be very caught in a rut with people who want to do the same thing over and over again, right? I
Yeah,
cannot remember who I had. Oh, it was with Vyavaki. Uh, how many Edda albums do we need? How many albums
yeah,
do we need of someone doing the Edda, right? And even though I don't want that to discourage anyone, please, if you think you can do something that's meaningful to you with the Edda, please do it. What I'm saying now is a meta commentary on the genre, right? Where people are sort of getting stuck doing the same,
yeah,
retreading the same ground. Um, and I see that as a potential danger for the genre. But the future of the genre, I think, lies in people like you who are sort of like willing to step outside of that comfort zone to explore something new. Um, so, do you have anything to say about that from your perspective as someone who's relatively new to the genre?
Well, I believe most people turn to the Edda for the lyrics
Mm-hmm.
because it's very easy and
Mm-hmm.
convenient. Do you say so?
Yeah.
Uh, to grab the lyrics and you just produce music and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, put it out there. Um, but I think if people go on long enough in this genre, they're gonna eventually gonna end up like me, desperate to find something new. Hopefully, if
Mm-hmm.
they keep going that long. But yeah, I very much agree with you. It's getting kind of tiresome hearing the same stuff
Mm-hmm.
lyrically, I guess. But
Yep. And this is what
I
happens with any
myself,
genre.
yeah, yeah. I mean, how many songs don't you have on these different topics,
Mhm.
like death, love, all that stuff. People do it over and over and over. Like you can't even. But in this genre, you don't word it differently either because it's already pre-written.
Mhm.
So, so we really get the same thing here.
Yeah, and
So when I try to listen to something, it's I turn to the music mainly, I guess.
mhm. and and there's something else here where people will, even in just the words, even if the music is entirely different, right? People will see the same words and think, "Oh, this is a copy," even if it's not. I actually just ran into that. You were talking to me about Beritat with Scuzzlebutt. The amount of
Yeah.
people who asked me, "Oh, is this an Ulver cover?" And I was like, "No, it's not. I love Ulver, but Ulver I don't recall having any banjo, right?"
No,
And
no.
but that is, I think that's sort of a case in point there, where that's even just one word, where people assume that that one word, right, it was made by Ulver or something, if they're not from,
Yeah.
if they don't speak any Scandinavian languages, that you know that's not a stretch to assume. But I think that's a nice case in point where the value in sort of like expanding even just the words you use, expanding your lyrics, can do a lot to set you apart from others.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, it's been so great to talk to you. I've really loved we've been chatting for like a year now, just back and forth. It's been so cool to finally get to talk to you and have you on the channel to talk about your music, because I really love what you're doing. It's just so cool to hear where you are planning to go next with this book of dark magic. And it's been so great to sort of hear your perspective on how you approach the music, right? So
Mm.
so, Andreas, where can people find you if they want to follow your photography or your music or anything?
My music is mainly up on all major platforms: Spotify, Deezer, iTunes, all that stuff. YouTube. I have a YouTube channel as well, Nattramn Official. Instagram, same there, Nattramn.official. There's a Facebook page as well. Not really sure what the address is there, but Nattramn something. I'm all
Yeah,
over.
let's just make sure it's not the silencer, not ramen.
No, exactly. I want to make that very clear. I am not drums. No, wait, silencers, not drum.
Oh, it is so great, man. Well, Andreas, thank you so much for coming on the channel. It's been great to chat, and I hope to have you back whenever you have something more solid to show us with that black magic. All right?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man.
And
Take care. Thank you. Don't be a
you too.
stranger. All right?
No, okay, same.